When I was a kid, I had a Land Rover Defender, not unlike this one. It was part of a NASA rocket launcher kit, and it came with a Peterbilt truck and a Chevy Caprice. And despite growing up in the country, Land Rover's icon wasn't particularly common, and back then, it wasn't particularly iconic either. It was just a simple workhorse. It's no secret that when Land Rover launched the new Defender in 2019, it maintained some of the old styling features of the original car, but otherwise turned the recipe inside out. It's still compact, but this time it's much more comfortable. And while it's still capable, it's also much more technologically advanced. And that's why I'm here in a much bigger sandpit than I ever could have imagined as a kid to find out whether the 2023 Defender 90 lives up to my childhood aspirations. In this instance, 90 refers to the short wheelbase 3-door body, SE is the mid-range trim level, and P400 points to the 400 horsepower turbocharged straight 6 engine under the bonnet. That's 294 kilowatts in metric figures. As for price, the Defender 90 range starts from just over $84,000 for a base Defender 90, all the way past 221 grand for the bonkers Defender V8. The car you see here wears a $105,690 sticker. That's before options, and there's a few of those. There's a bright pack for chrome on the grille and the front and rear skid plates, a towing pack with a tow bar, advanced tow assist and upgraded terrain response system, air suspension, a cold climate pack with a heated steering wheel, heated seats and heated headlight washers, a torque vectoring rear differential, a clear sight interior mirror, and a handful of other minor touches, bringing the total to $121,720 plus on-road costs. The standard haul of equipment covers features like 20-inch wheels, coil spring suspension, 12-way powered seats, LED head and tail lights, rubber flooring in the cabin and boot, dual zone climate control, low range transfer case, and the iconic Alpine lights or small sky-facing windows in the roof. It can be a little bit hard to get a sense of scale for the Defender until you see one in the metal, but once you're in here, you actually discover that it's a pretty spacious thing overall. There's lots of room for the front seat occupants. I've got way more headroom than I could ever need and plenty of wing room as well. I'm sitting in a fairly wide seat and it's trimmed in acorn leather, but there's some weird kind of spec mismatch inside this interior. There's carpet floor mats fitted to this car, but they're on top of a vinyl floor. There is the leather seats that I mentioned, and they're electrically adjustable, and then you have things like exposed screws in the center console. That console itself too is absolutely huge. It's wide and it's long. You have the option to actually get rid of it entirely and fit the car with a 6th jump seat, but in this car you get plenty of storage space in there. You get a wireless charge pad, you get cup holders, and under here there's a giant pass-through where you'd be able to fit a laptop or a small bag. Underpinning the whole dash there is a exposed powder-coated magnesium support structure, and you can see it with a Defender stamp on that side and in details like the steering wheel and on parts of the doors. And it gives a kind of old school authenticity to the interior that goes with those exposed screws that I mentioned before. It's one of those things that you probably don't really need, but it's that weird balance again between what is luxury and what is old-fashioned, and I think the Defender gets it absolutely right in every aspect. Moving forward slightly, you get this climate control panel, and I mention it only because it actually sticks with physical buttons and dials and hasn't moved to a touchscreen. But not only that, it does more than one thing. As well as being the climate control, you can access Land Rover's terrain response system through here. So by pressing this button and using this dial, It lets you pick between your off-road modes rather than having a separate set of controls somewhere else in the car. The Defender also shares Jaguar Land Rover's Pivi Pro infotainment system. It's an 11.4-inch screen, and the layout is a lot like what you'd find in a tablet or a smartphone, so it's very intuitive to use. It comes with its own dedicated SIM card, and it will actually boot up before you get in the car. So basically, once you've unlocked, it starts its boot up process and it is ready to run the second you open the door. It comes with navigation built in, and it's got wireless connectivity for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Before we even talk about the rear seat itself, I just want to point these out to you. They're called Alpine lights, and they're a bit of an iconic carryover Land Rover design detail. Don't actually do anything functional, but you can see through them. And they're just like a skylight that made its way from the original Defender into this new generation, which is kind of cool to see. Other than that, the rear seat itself is almost embarrassingly spacious. I've got so much rear knee room here, but headroom maybe not as much up front. And that's because the Defender has stadium seating, which means this seat is much higher than those. That means that I can actually see over the front seats. As well as that, there is a fold-down center armrest, a padded armrest on the outboard side. There's a cup holder down by my feet, and rear seat passengers get air vents plus USB power. So the ride back here is almost as good as what the passengers up front get. The big problem with the short Defender, ironically, is its small boot. If you have a look in there, I've got this much space to load into, and it's about 463 litres in total, but it's worth noting that Land Rover uses a wet measurement, not the same standard as everyone else, so that does sound a little bit generous. You can expand that, of course, and you've got to remove this odd little flimsy load cover, and you can fold the rear seats down, and you get over 1,563 litres of cargo. Plus, the boot floor and the back of the seat backs are hard, they're not carpeted, so you get a bit more durability that way. The other neat trick that Defenders with air suspension have is that you can lower them from inside the boot, which means if you've got anything heavy or awkward, you can drop this down and you don't have to lift as far. Of course, you don't need to worry about a spare tyre packed under your luggage or underneath the floor. There's a full-size spare on the tailgate, which means that it's exactly the same as the other wheels on the car, but that side hinge tailgate is both heavy and because of its nature, it's not powered, so you kind of have to do all of the heavy lifting by yourself. Not so bad here, but it can be a bit of a pain if you're parked on a hill or if the wind picks up. Under the bonnet, there's a lot to unpack. The P400 engine fitted here was, for a while, the Defender's flagship option, although the recently added Defender V8 now wears that crown. The 3-litre inline 6-cylinder engine features a combination of turbocharging, an electric supercharger, and a 48-volt mild hybrid system, all in an effort to keep consumption low and performance high. There's 294 kilowatts and 550 newton meters from as low as 2,000 RPM. That runs through an 8-speed automatic and low-range transfer case to a permanent 4-wheel drive system. Fully independent suspension keeps the wheels in contact with the ground, and in the case of this car, there's a set of Goodyear Wrangler all-terrain tyres on 20-inch rims. It's also possible to option smaller 19s or a set of less off-road friendly 22-inch wheels if you like. By now, the idea of a 4-wheel drive that can take you into some serious off-road terrain and then bring itself back onto the freeway with barely a moment to adjust is nothing new. We've seen it a lot, and we've certainly seen a lot of it from Land Rover in the past, and I guess we will in the future as well. So in that regard, the Defender doesn't have that as its party trick, but in reality, the thing that it does have is that this is definitely still a car that's at home off-road, certainly more so than it is on-road. The terrain that we're on today is a little bit challenging. You certainly wouldn't want to bring your regular hatchback-based kind of SUV out here, but at the same time, it's hardly scratched the surface of what this car is capable of. There's water crossings, there's hill crests, and for those kinds of things, it's pretty easy to manage around here. If you need a little bit more clearance, you can just raise the air suspension. If the terrain changes and it goes from gravelly to muddy, you can just use the terrain response dial here and set things up the way that you need to at the twist of a button. Everything else is kind of automatic. It picks the right ride height and it tells you if you need to select low range. You don't have to think too hard about taking this car off-road and getting it properly dirty. This car's strength is definitely still off-road, and it seems to respond much better to this kind of terrain than it does to living a life in the city. And I say that kind of lightheartedly. It's actually perfectly capable around town. But the shorter wheelbase here means that it's a little bit more pogo-y and pattery at highway speeds, but the steering is also still really settled. The engine under the bonnet, well, it's a bit of a powerhouse on paper. 294 kilowatts is definitely nothing to sneeze at. But in reality, it doesn't make this car kind of wild or unwieldy to handle. So that means the throttle tips in really gently. As you move off from a standstill, you've kind of got to dig deep to unlock that ability. It's not a race car in the body of a four-wheel drive by any means whatsoever. And the same goes for the 8-speed automatic transmission. It is set to be smooth and therefore it'll hold gears longer. It doesn't kick down eagerly and it just keeps progress and momentum steady and stable. And all of that is really helpful to have on gravel, on dirt, on loose surfaces where you could potentially easily unsettle the car. This car won't be unsettled. There is a sports mode for the transmission. I haven't even bothered with it up to this point. There is a manual mode. That's certainly more helpful where the terrain gets a little bit rougher and tougher. But honestly, for most of what you want to do with this car, you can just dial it up through either the terrain response mode or through the height adjustable suspension. Haven't bottomed it out yet, and a lot of that comes down to the ramp over angle. This car is a short wheelbase and therefore makes it over things easily. Front and rear overhangs are tiny. So we haven't encountered any terrain today that's particularly challenged the car. And like I say, this course is a little bit rough and ready, but it's not enough to stop the Defender, which I think is far and away this car's biggest asset. And the reason that you would pick this Defender or the 5-door Defender 110 over something like a Discovery. Being a Land Rover, still got plenty of off-road capability baked in, but this car is absolutely built to be tougher and go further than anything else in the Land Rover stable. As any adventurer knows, it's not just the destination, but the journey that matters. And that's where this Defender does something that the original Defender just couldn't do. Once you're out of the wilderness and back on the open road, headed towards civilization, the Defender shrugs off its hard-working, tough terrain underpinnings and settles into a stride much more like a regular Grand Tourer. Although you probably wouldn't pick it from the outside, the platform underpinning the Defender is actually closely related to that of the Discovery. Now obviously, in this application, it's been beefed up to spend more time off-road, but because of the similarities, it means that the Defender is just as quiet and just as comfortable once you're out of the rough stuff and back on the blacktop. Before we wrap up, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. It's a huge help to the channel and it means we can keep bringing you more great videos like this one. If you're new to Drive, remember to subscribe and click the notification bell to stay up to date with everything we do. Anyway, back to the Defender. See, I've got this theory, and that is that Australians are needlessly obsessed with practicality. I mean, you see it all the time. Coupes selling a fraction of the numbers of hatchbacks, and with SUVs, bigger always seems to be better. Hence why you see so many 7-seaters in your neighbourhood, even for families with 1 or 2 kids. But I reckon that's all wrong. In short wheelbase Defender 90 form, this little guy can do everything that its bigger 5-door sibling can. As a matter of fact, with a lighter weight and a shorter wheelbase, it can probably go a little bit further. Despite all of that, it can still seat 5 in comfort. It may not be as practical overall, but if you need to carry more, you can fold the rear seats or add a roof carrier box. I reckon some of the specification choices are a little bit odd. It's a $100,000 car with a rubber floor and leather seats. But given that this car isn't trying to be as utilitarian as its forebear, I think that kind of mix of specification actually works. Hopefully this car occupies an aspirational place in the minds of a new generation in the same way that the old one did for me.